earlier in August, if you guys were here for the baptism and heard Adam's story, mine is actually very similar to his. I was raised in a family that didn't really practice religion. My parents were raised Catholic, and they went to Catholic schools, and they were raised during that time where it was very strict. So they had like hit with rulers and things like that. So when they had my brother and I, they just kind of had moved away from religion, and I didn't have much exposure to it. I did go to church a handful of times when I was around 7 or 8, and it was when I went to Sunday school, and I didn't really know what was going on. Didn't really quite catch on to it, and my parents had asked, do you want to keep going or do you not? And when you ask a 7 or 8-year-old that question who's really never been to church, I said no, because I would rather stay and play with my friends. So as I started to get older and into my teenage years, I had a couple different experiences, and again, when I went to church, just because I didn't know much about it, I just kind of heard like the stories that are more popular. Those are the ones that kind of stood out to me. And so as I went to church as a teenager, I just kind of felt like the pastors were reading from the Bible, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. I couldn't pick up on the stories. I couldn't follow the dialogue and what was going on. And I just felt like I couldn't connect, and I also felt like I didn't know how to apply it to my life. And so it just was very hard. It was a struggle. I just couldn't understand, and I couldn't relate. So then kind of fast forward a couple years later, last year I had met a gentleman, and he attends church up the Adventist church in Boulder, and he invited me to come to service with him on Sabbath, and I was like, all right, why not? Let's see what this is about. And as I started to attend, I noticed a different change. The pastors there, Japhet and Jessica, I don't know if anyone knows them, and just overall the community, very open arms, very sweet, very kind, very just warm and welcoming. And as I started to attend, I noticed that I started to kind of understand the sermons a little bit more and what was being shared, and I could apply it to my life a little bit more. And I started to really enjoy it, and I started to look forward to these services, and I really wanted to see what this was about. And the more I kept going, it was just, it felt like every sermon, I don't know how to explain it, was just speaking into my soul. And it was just so overwhelming and so positive, and it was something I just wanted to keep feeling and keep exploring. And the messages that I was hearing was just completely different than what I had experienced the handful of times I had gone when I was younger. And so things ended up not working out between us, and I knew, though, that I loved the feeling of what I was experiencing when I was in church. I loved the messages that I was hearing, and that I wanted to keep exploring this. I knew that if I did not choose to continue pursuing God and seeing who he was and finding out who he really was and who Jesus was, that I would regret it. So I asked a friend from work. I knew he went to church, and I was like, "Hey, Luke, can you invite me to church sometime? I'm interested to see what this is more about." And so he invited me, and I started going with him. And it just, again, every sermon, it was just the weirdest thing. And as time's gone on, I know it's the Holy Spirit now. But for someone who didn't know, I was just like, how did they know I was coming? How did they tailor this message to me? I don't understand. It was just so powerful. And it has just been such a blessing. And then so Andre, he goes to Boulder, and I know he comes here sometimes. He's the one who actually invited me to small group earlier this year. And I was like, it was the first Bible study I'd ever been to. So I texted him, I was like, I've never been to Bible study before. I don't know what to expect. I know I need a Bible. I'm just really nervous. And so when I came, everyone just welcomed me with open arms. And it was so heartwarming and so great to be so accepted. And I just, it's just been such a powerful group to be a part of. And so I thank everybody. You guys all know who you are and how much you've meant to me. So thank you very much. And so when Pastor Dave asked me to share my story, I definitely said yes, because I wanted to share how much God has changed my life in this past year, and that I've continued to pursue him and get to know who he is truly and who Jesus is and what Jesus has done for us and what God does for us. And it's just been, although there's still stressful days and there's still chaotic days, in this past year I've overcome with such a sense of peace, knowing that it's no longer my life, it's God's life and his will for my life. And so I want to share that, because I don't know how to explain the peace that has been given to me. And to also just thank everybody from the small group, because you guys have made such a positive, impactful presence in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am in this journey if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you guys.